Her engagement was cancelled and she randomly married a poor man, unaware he was a mysterious millionaire. The grand ballroom of the St. Regis Hotel shimmered under the golden glow of chandeliers. The air was thick with the scent of roses, champagne, and the quiet murmur of high society chatter. Everything was perfect, exactly as Sophia had imagined her engagement party to be. She stood near the center of the room, her hands lightly clutching a glass of sparkling wine, her heart beating a little faster in excitement. Tonight, in front of everyone, she and Daniel would finally announce their engagement. Her fiancé was running late, but that wasn't unusual. Daniel was a busy man, a rising star in the business world, ambitious and sharp. But he always showed up for her. Always. She adjusted the delicate lace on her pale blue dress, stealing a glance at her parents, who were engaged in polite conversation with a group of influential guests. They had pushed for this engagement, ensuring that Daniel was the right match for their family's legacy. Sophia sighed, taking another sip of champagne. Where is he? Then, the doors to the ballroom swung open. All eyes turned, and in walked Daniel, not alone, but hand in hand with another woman. Sophia's heart stopped. Whispers rippled through the crowd. A waiter froze mid-pour, champagne spilling onto the tablecloth. Cameras from the invited press turned, capturing the scandal unfolding before them. Sophia couldn't move. Lisa Carter. The daughter of one of Daniel's most important business partners. Stunning, dressed in a sleek red gown that clung to her like second skin, her lips curved into a smirk. And Daniel, he looked completely unbothered. He was still holding her hand. Sophia forced herself to speak, her voice a whisper, barely audible over the tension filling the room. Daniel? He stopped a few feet away from her, looked her dead in the eyes. And then, with chilling indifference, he spoke. Sophia, I can't marry you. The words hit her like a slap. The entire room fell silent. Sophia's breath hitched. What are you saying? Daniel exhaled as if this was nothing more than a slight inconvenience. Let's be honest here, Sophia. You have nothing to offer me. Her stomach twisted. I don't understand. You proposed to me. Daniel's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Did I, though? Or was it just a conversation our families arranged? Her vision blurred. I needed the leverage of your family's name, he continued, but now I have better options. Lisa chuckled softly, squeezing Daniel's arm. He means me. Sophia felt sick. This is a joke, right? She whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel's eyes hardened. I never loved you, Sophia, he said, his voice sharp and cutting. You were just a stepping stone. And now, I don't need you anymore. A sharp gasp broke through the room. Someone dropped a glass. Sophia's hands trembled as she stared at him, trying to find anything, any sign that this wasn't real, that this wasn't happening. But Daniel just smirked. Lisa tilted her head, faux sympathy dripping from her voice. You're a sweet girl, Sophia. But let's be real. You don't belong in Daniel's world. You never did. Sophia's entire body went cold. 100 pairs of eyes were on her, watching, waiting to see how she would crumble. She could feel the whispers, poor girl, so embarrassing. Did she really think he loved her? Her mother's voice cut through the suffocating silence. Sophia! Sophia turned slowly, hoping, just this once, that her mother would defend her. But the look on her mother's face wasn't one of concern. It was disgust. You have humiliated us, her mother said, her voice low and sharp as a blade. Sophia's mouth parted. I didn't. If you can't secure a husband with wealth and power, her mother continued coldly, then you are no longer a daughter of mine. The final blow. Sophia staggered back. Her mother turned away, leaving her alone in a room full of people. Her entire world had just shattered. The streets of Manhattan were unforgiving at night, especially when you were walking alone in an evening gown that no longer felt like it belonged to you. Sophia's heels clicked against the pavement, the sound sharp, relentless, mocking. Her feet ached, the delicate shoes digging into her skin, but she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Not when every time she closed her eyes, she could still hear Daniel's voice, cold, final. I never loved you. Her mother's voice wasn't far behind, slicing through her already broken heart. You are no longer a daughter of mine. A shaky breath escaped her lips as she stumbled forward, the crisp night air burning her lungs. The diamond engagement ring that had once sat proudly on her finger was gone, left abandoned on the marble floor of the ballroom. She had nothing now. No fiancés, no family, no future. She didn't know how long she wandered, but eventually, the warm glow of a small, dimly lit bar pulled her in. It wasn't the kind of place she normally would have set foot in, too old, too quiet, too unfamiliar. But right now, she didn't care. She just needed a drink. The bartender barely glanced at her as she slid onto the worn-out stool, her dress out of place against the peeling wood and flickering neon lights. "Whiskey," she muttered. "Neat." The bartender raised an eyebrow but said nothing, pouring her a glass before stepping away. Sophia downed the first sip, wincing as the burn seared down her throat. Good, she wanted it to hurt. "You don't seem like the whiskey type." A voice, smooth, deep, edged with curiosity. Sophia turned her head and found herself looking at a man sitting a few stools away. He was not the kind of man she was used to. No tailored suit, no designer watch. Instead, he wore a plain dark jacket over a simple gray t-shirt. His hair was slightly tousled, as if he didn't bother to keep it perfectly styled. But his eyes, they were striking. Deep, unreadable, as if he carried secrets she would never understand. "Maybe I wasn't before," Sophia muttered, taking another sip. "But people change." The man tilted his head, studying her. "Rough night?" She let out a bitter laugh. "You could say that." For some reason she found herself talking, the whiskey loosening the pain lodged in her chest. She told him about the engagement, the betrayal, the humiliation. She didn't know why. Maybe because he was a stranger. Maybe because he wouldn't judge her the way the rest of the world did. The man listened, never interrupting, just watching her with those dark, knowing eyes. And then, when she finished, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the bar. "If you need a husband," he said casually, "I'm right here." Sophia blinked. Then she laughed, really laughed. "You?" she teased, eyes glimmering with drunken amusement. "You want to marry me?" The man smiled, a slow, lazy curve of his lips. "Why not? You need a husband. I don't have anything better to do." It was crazy, completely insane. And yet, something in Sophia's chest stirred. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was the heartbreak. Maybe it was the fact that for the first time tonight, she felt like she was in control of her own fate. So she lifted her glass in a mock toast and grinned. "All right, stranger. Let's get married." Sophia woke up with a pounding headache and an unsettling sense of wrongness. The sheets beneath her were not the silk ones from her penthouse. The air smelled faintly of coffee and something unfamiliar. And then she saw it. A cheap silver ring on her left hand. Her stomach dropped. She turned her head slowly, too scared of what she would find. And there he was, the stranger from the bar, Liam, lying next to her, shirtless, one arm draped lazily over his chest, his breathing steady. Sophia gasped. What the hell had she done? Sophia sat on the edge of the worn-out couch, staring at the peeling paint on the walls, the dim lighting casting long shadows across the small apartment. This was her new home. She still wasn't sure how it had come to this, how she had gone from silk sheets and marble floors to this tiny, cluttered space with creaky wooden floors and a kitchen barely big enough for one person. How she had gone from being Sophia Davenport, the glamorous fiancée of a wealthy businessman, to Sophia, whatever her last name was now. She glanced down at the cheap silver ring on her finger, as if expecting it to vanish and take this surreal nightmare with it. But it didn't. Instead, there was movement from the small kitchenette. She turned her head and saw Liam, her husband. Ty, the stranger she had agreed to marry in a drunken haze. He was standing by the stove, dressed in nothing but a pair of sweatpants, his back turned to her as he flipped something in a pan. The scent of buttery eggs and toast filled the apartment, making her stomach grumble before she could stop it. Liam glanced over his shoulder, catching her staring. "Morning, wifey," he said, smirking. Sophia groaned and covered her face with her hands. "I was hoping this was just a bad dream," she mumbled. Liam chuckled. "Nope. It's real. You married a stranger. Congrats." Sophia peeked through her fingers. "And you're completely okay with this?" He shrugged, placing 2 plates of scrambled eggs and toast on the tiny dining table. "I'm a man of my word. You needed a husband. I delivered." Sophia exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "This is insane." Liam slid into the chair across from her, watching her carefully. "Eat first. Then we can talk about how much you regret your RDRF choices." She scowled at him but picked up her fork anyway. The reality of her situation hit hard over the next few days. She had nothing, No access to her family's money, no designer clothes, no housekeepers to clean up after her. She had to wash dishes, do laundry, and worst of all, she had to budget. She had never budgeted in her life. The first time she followed Liam to the grocery store, she had reached for a $12 bottle of organic water, only for him to raise an eyebrow and put it back. "You're not a Davenport anymore, princess," he said, tossing a 99-cent bottle into the cart instead. "Welcome to the real world." Sophia huffed but said nothing. It was humiliating, frustrating, and yet oddly freeing. For the first time, there were no expectations. No pressure to be the perfect socialite, no judgmental eyes watching her every move. And then there was Liam. He wasn't like the men she had known, men who threw money around, who measured worth by wealth. Liam was different. Despite his teasing, he never let her struggle. When she burned their dinner, he just laughed and ordered takeout. When she tripped over a loose floorboard, he was there to catch her before she could hit the ground. And one rainy evening, when the power went out and she sat curled up on the couch, feeling more lost than ever, Liam simply grabbed a blanket, draped it over her shoulders, and sat beside her in silence. He didn't pity her. He just understood. And slowly, very slowly, Sophia began to realize. Maybe she wasn't as lost as she thought. Sophia had always prided herself on her ability to read people. Growing up in high society, she had learned to recognize the subtle tells, the way someone carried themselves, the slight hesitation in their voice when they lied, the flicker of greed in their eyes when they wanted something. But Liam didn't make sense. At first, she had accepted that he was just a regular guy, someone who lived paycheck to paycheck, someone who didn't care for luxury or extravagance. But little things didn't add up. It started with the wine. One evening, Liam brought home a bottle of red wine. Nothing fancy, just something he had grabbed from the store. Sophia, having grown up in a world where people debated over vintage versus terroir, had smirked. "Let me guess," she teased. "You're a beer guy, aren't you?" Liam chuckled, but said nothing as he poured himself a glass. Then, to her shock, he swirled the wine in his glass, examined the color under the light, took a deep inhale, and sipped it like a sommelier. Sophia's brows furrowed. "What was that?" Liam raised an eyebrow. "What was what?" "That," she gestured at his glass. "That was a proper wine-tasting technique." Liam smirked. "Maybe I just like wine." Sophia narrowed her eyes. "Normal guys don't do that." Then there was the car incident. A few days later, as they walked past a luxury car dealership, she had joked, "If you could have any car in the world, what would it be?" Liam barely hesitated. "Aston Martin DBS Superleggera," he said casually. "V12 engine, 715 horsepower, top speed of 211 miles per hour. Sophia stared at him. Most guys she knew wouldn't even remember the name of that car, let alone its specs. Liam noticed her look and shrugged. "What? I like cars." Sophia let it slide. But then came the money. One evening, while Liam was in the shower, Sophia was looking for a pen in the small wooden drawer of their kitchen table when she saw it, a thick stack of crisp $100 bills. Her heart stopped. Liam was broke, wasn't he? They budgeted for groceries, lived in a run-down apartment, ate takeout on special occasions. So where did this come from? She carefully picked up the stack, running her fingers over the smooth paper. It wasn't just a few bills. There had to be at least $10,000 sitting in that drawer. Before she could process it, Liam's voice came from behind her. "Looking for something?" Sophia jumped, nearly dropping the money. Liam was leaning against the doorway, towel slung around his neck, arms crossed. She turned to him, eyes filled with confusion. Where did this come from? Liam simply walked over, took the stack from her hands, and placed it back into the drawer, closing it without a word. Sophia stared at him. "Liam?" He finally met her gaze, that same infuriating smirk playing on his lips. "Does it matter?" he asked. Sophia blinked. "Of course it matters. We live like we can barely afford rent, but you have stacks of cash just lying around." Liam shrugged. "I don't like wasting money." "That's not an answer." He chuckled, stepping closer. "Didn't you marry me because you loved me for who I am, not for what I have?" Sophia's breath hitched. That's what she had said. That money didn't matter, that she didn't care about wealth. But now, standing in front of him, knowing there was something he wasn't telling her, she felt uneasy. Liam lifted her chin slightly with his fingers, his voice softer now. "Trust me, Sophia," he murmured. "Everything will make sense soon enough." But would it? Sophia's stomach twisted. She had seen the signs. The way Liam never seemed worried about money, despite them living in a run-down apartment. The way he casually rattled off car specifications like a collector. The way he handled wine like a seasoned sommelier. And now? A hidden stash of money? A horrifying thought crept into her mind. Was Liam involved in something illegal? The floor creaked beneath her as she shifted her weight. Liam's head snapped up. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, Liam closed the drawer, his fingers tightening around the edge. His jaw clenched, his expression unreadable. Sophia forced herself to find her voice. "Where did that money come from?" Liam sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "It's not what you think, Sophia." Her chest tightened. "Then explain it to me." Liam hesitated. Just for a second. And that second was enough. "Are you," Sophia swallowed. "Are you in some kind of trouble?" Liam's gaze darkened. "No." "Then why are you hiding stacks of cash?" Her voice rose. "You act like we can barely afford groceries, but you have thousands of dollars sitting in a drawer? What the hell is going on?" Liam exhaled sharply, frustration flickering across his face. "Sophia, just trust me." "Trust you?" she scoffed. "How can I trust you when you keep secrets from me?" Liam's eyes flashed. "I could ask you the same thing. You married me thinking I was just some poor guy, and that was fine, right? But now, the moment you see money, you assume the worst." Sophia opened her mouth, but Liam cut her off. "You think I'm a criminal?" he snapped. Sophia flinched, guilt washing over her. She hadn't said it outright, but had she implied it? Liam shook his head, his voice quieter now, but laced with something raw. "I thought you saw me for who I was, not for what I had, or didn't have." Sophia's throat tightened. "I do," she whispered. Liam's jaw worked, his hands curling into fists before he turned away. "Then act like it," he muttered, walking out of the kitchen and leaving her standing there, more confused than ever. The next day, Sophia couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something big. Liam had secrets, and she needed to know what they were. That afternoon, while sorting through some old books in their apartment, she found a yellowed newspaper clipping tucked between the pages. Her pulse sped up. It was an old business article, dated 3 years ago. And right there, in the center of the page, was a photo of Liam. Or at least, someone who looked exactly like him. But the name beneath the photo wasn't Liam. It was Liam Alexander Sterling. Her fingers trembled as she read the headline. "Billionaire hair disappears without a trace. The mystery of Liam Sterling." Sophia's blood ran cold. Who the hell had she married? The farmer's market was alive with color and chatter. The scent of fresh bread, ripe fruit, and roasted coffee beans lingered in the crisp morning air as Sophia and Liam moved through the bustling crowd. It had become their little Saturday ritual, walking through the market, picking up fresh produce, and bickering over whether they really needed another loaf of artisanal sourdough. Sophia had grown to love these mornings. There was something peaceful about them, something real. She reached for a bundle of strawberries when a voice, sharp, mocking, too familiar, cut through the air behind her. Well, look who it is." Sophia froze. Slowly she turned around, and there, standing in the middle of the market in his expensive tailored suit, was Daniel. And beside him, arm wrapped possessively around his, was Lisa. Sophia's stomach twisted. Liam, sensing the shift in her, placed a gentle hand on her lower back. "Friends of yours?" he asked lightly, though there was a slight edge to his voice. Sophia exhaled slowly. "Something like that." Daniel smirked. "I have to say, Sophia, I almost didn't recognize you without your designer dresses and diamond jewelry." Lisa let out a soft laugh, looking Liam up and down with a sneer. "And this must be your husband." Her tone dripped with mockery. Liam remained silent, but Sophia could feel the way his body tensed slightly beside her. Daniel crossed his arms, clearly enjoying himself. "It's actually sad, really. You used to be someone, Sophia. And now? You're married to a man who can barely afford a decent pair of shoes." Sophia's blood boiled. How dare he? Liam had been nothing but kind to her, nothing but patient and loving. And yet, Daniel, with his shallow, materialistic arrogance, had the audacity to stand there and mock him. Sophia lifted her chin. "At least he loves me," she said evenly, her voice steady and proud. Daniel's smirk faltered for a split second before he laughed coldly. Love? Oh, Sophia, that's cute. But let's be honest, love doesn't pay the bills. Lisa leaned into him, her red lips curving into a wicked smirk. And let's be honest, what does your husband have? Other than that old jacket? Sophia's fingers curled into a fist, but before she could speak, Liam finally did. I have enough, Liam said smoothly. His voice was calm, unbothered, but his eyes told a different story. Dark, calculating, like he was amused by something the rest of them weren't aware of. And then he smiled. A small, knowing smile, like he was holding a secret that could shake the ground they stood on. Daniel frowned slightly, as if for the first time he sensed that something wasn't quite right. Lisa, however, just scoffed, "You're delusional." But Liam simply tilted his head, his smile never faltering. And Sophia, standing beside him, couldn't shake the feeling that the game was about to change in a way Daniel and Lisa would never see coming. The apartment was quiet, except for the soft ticking of the old clock on the wall. Sophia sat on the couch, her heart pounding, her hands trembling as she held the letter she had just found. The name on it burned into her mind. Liam Alexander Sterling. Not Liam Carter. Not Liam Smith. Liam Alexander Sterling. She knew that name. Everyone in the business world did. The Sterling Empire was one of the most powerful conglomerates in the country, with investments in real estate, technology, and luxury brands. But 3 years ago, after a family scandal, Liam Sterling, the sole heir, had disappeared without a trace. And now he was sitting in their tiny apartment, pretending to be just an ordinary man. Sophia's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a secret. This was a lie. Liam walked through the front door a few minutes later, casually tossing his keys onto the table. He looked at her and smiled, like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. You're home early, he said, shrugging off his jacket. I was thinking of making pasta tonight, unless you're craving something else. Sophia didn't move. Her fingers gripped the letter so tightly that it crinkled under her touch. Finally, she spoke. Liam Alexander Sterling. The words hung in the air, heavy, suffocating. Liam's hands froze mid-motion. Slowly, his eyes lifted to hers. There was no confusion in them. No shock. Just a quiet understanding. Sophia swallowed hard. That's your real name, isn't it? Liam exhaled softly and ran a hand through his hair, his face unreadable. Where did you find that? He asked, his voice calm. That's not the point, Liam, she snapped, standing up, her emotions spilling over. The point is, you lied to me. You let me believe you were just some regular guy, when in reality you're a billionaire, he finished for her, a small smirk playing on his lips. Sophia's heart twisted. This isn't funny, she whispered, her voice breaking. Why? Why didn't you tell me? Liam sighed and leaned against the counter, folding his arms. Because I didn't want you to love me for my money, he said simply. Sophia froze. His voice was steady, honest, raw. You think I haven't seen it before? He continued. People pretending to care. Women who looked at me like I was a prize instead of a person. His eyes darkened. I needed to know what it was like to be loved for who I am, not what I'm worth. Sophia's breath hitched. The truth of it cut deep. She had been raised in a world where money meant everything. She had seen people marry for status, for power. And she had almost married Daniel, a man who had seen her as nothing more than a bargaining chip. Now, standing in front of her, was Liam, a man who had chosen to walk away from wealth to find something real. And he had chosen her. A tear slipped down her cheek. Liam stepped closer, his voice softer now. I never meant to hurt you, Sophia, he murmured. But now that you know the truth, I have to ask. He lifted a hand to gently cup her cheek, his thumb brushing away the tear. Do you still love me? He asked quietly. Sophia's heart pounded. Two. Because for the first time in her life, money didn't matter. He did. The rooftop was bathed in the golden glow of fairy lights, the soft hum of jazz playing in the background. A gentle evening breeze carried the scent of fresh roses, mixing with the warmth of candlelight that flickered on the elegantly set table. Sophia stared in awe. The scene before her was breathtaking, too perfect, too unreal. She turned to Liam, who stood beside her, his hands tucked into his pockets, watching her reaction with quiet amusement. You did all this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam smirked. I had some help. Sophia let out a breathless laugh, shaking her head. You know, most regular guys don't have access to rooftop venues and private chefs. Liam chuckled. guilty as charged. He reached for her hand, leading her toward the table, pulling out a chair for her before taking his own seat across from her. The dinner was perfect. Delicate bites of gourmet dishes, a bottle of rich, velvety wine that Liam expertly poured into her glass. But despite the beauty surrounding them, Sophia couldn't shake the emotions swirling inside her. A part of her still struggled to bridge the gap between the Liam she had come to love and the billionaire heir he truly was. "You're quiet," Liam observed, watching her closely. Sophia sighed, setting down her fork. "I guess I'm still processing everything." Liam nodded, as if he understood. "Because of the money?" Sophia hesitated, then nodded. "It's not that I care about wealth, Liam," she said. "It's just, this world of yours, the one you walked away from, it's different from mine. What if I don't fit in?" Liam leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "You think I care about any of that?" Sophia opened her mouth to respond, but Liam suddenly stood up. And then he dropped to one knee. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. Liam pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and slowly flipped it open, revealing a stunning diamond ring, shimmering under the rooftop lights. Her heart pounded. "Sophia," he said softly, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I don't want to just be the guy you married in a drunken moment." He took a breath, his eyes never leaving hers. "I want to be the man you choose, the man who stands beside you, not because of chance but because you want me there." Sophia felt tears well up in her eyes. Liam took her hand in his thumb gently stroking her skin. "Forget the money," he murmured. "Forget the name. I'm just Liam. You're Liam." A tear slipped down her cheek, because deep down she had always known he was hers. She nodded, her voice breaking. "Yes," she whispered. Liam's face lit up, and in one swift motion, he slid the ring onto her finger before pulling her into his arms. And just like that, she wasn't lost anymore. She had found home. The grand ballroom of the Sterling Foundation was filled with warm golden light, the sound of soft music blending with the hum of conversation. Guests moved elegantly around the room, raising glasses of champagne in celebration. But this wasn't just another high society event. This was Sophia and Liam's dream turned into reality. Their foundation, dedicated to helping women who had been abandoned, mistreated, or left to rebuild their lives alone, was thriving. Because Sophia knew what it felt like to lose everything. And now she had a chance to give back, to offer hope to others who had once stood where she had. Liam stood beside her, his hand resting lightly on the small of her back, his presence grounding her as she smiled at the guests. She had never imagined her life would turn out like this, not just wealthy, but meaningful. Then, as they greeted the attendees, a familiar voice made Sophia freeze. "Well, isn't this a surprise?" She turned, and there they were, Daniel and Lisa. Only they were different now. Gone was Daniel's arrogance, his confidence. His once perfectly tailored suit now looked slightly worn, the usual smirk on his face replaced with bitterness. And Lisa, who had once draped herself in luxury, stood beside him with an uneasy expression, as if the ground beneath her was no longer stable. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Daniel." Daniel forced a smile, but there was something desperate in his eyes. "You've certainly moved up in the world." Lisa scoffed. "Enjoy it while it lasts." Sophia didn't react. She simply tilted her head. "I heard about Lisa's father's company. Tough luck." Liam, who had remained silent, now finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Business is unpredictable. One wrong move, and everything crumbles." Lisa's jaw clenched, and Daniel's face darkened. They had once looked down on Sophia. Now they were the ones struggling to stay afloat. Sophia squeezed Liam's hand and smiled. "You know what? I think I should actually thank you, Daniel." He frowned. "For what?" "For leaving me that night," she said, her voice steady, confident. "Because if you hadn't, I wouldn't have found the best decision of my life." She turned to Liam, her heart full. "Him." Daniel said nothing. Lisa huffed and dragged him away, disappearing into the crowd. Sophia let out a small laugh, shaking her head. "Poetic justice, don't you think?" Liam smirked. "I prefer to call it karma." The sun cast golden rays over the private beach resort, waves gently lapping at the shore. Sophia sat under a large sun umbrella, watching as two little figures, one boy, one girl, ran toward the water, laughing as Liam chased after them. They're twins, Leo and Liana. Sophia's heart swelled. Once she had lost everything. And now? She had a family. A purpose. A love that had defied all odds. Liam jogged back to her, their children giggling as they clung to his legs. He leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Happy?" he murmured. Sophia smiled, reaching for his hand. "More than I ever thought possible." She looked at her family, at the life they had built, and whispered, "You were the best decision I ever made." And so, Sophia's journey proves that sometimes life's greatest heartbreaks lead us to our most unexpected blessings. She lost everything, her wealth, her status, even her family. But in that loss she found true love, found herself, and built a life more meaningful than she had ever imagined. Liam had never needed his fortune to win her heart. He had only ever needed to be himself. Together they turned pain into purpose, creating a legacy of kindness that would help countless others. And in the end, that was the greatest wealth of all. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Soul-Stirring Stories for more inspiring tales of love, resilience, and second chances. See you in the next story.